Hey everyone, we're moving, and because of that I thought it'd be really good to go around and collect all of the various boxes of Warhammer that I've got. And all of these are boxes that are either unpainted or unbuilt or pretty much not started, so they're all possible future projects. Now this is what obviously people would call a pile of shame sometimes. I like to see it as a pile of opportunity. These are all things that I can use in future projects, and if the mood ever strikes to paint a particular model, I have it on hand. So I'm not overly upset with what I've got here, but I would like to get a rough catalogue, and then we can compare this in a year. I'm sure you've got similar sorts of piles of shame, piles of opportunity, piles of grey pension, whatever you would like to call it. And if you do, just drop down in the comments below either how many models, how many boxes, or what you roughly think you've invested into it, so that we can compare figures at the end and have a nice conversation about it. Overall, let's not waste any more time. With that said, let's dig out the various boxes and start looking at our backlog. We are going to be starting off with the smaller kits. So these are things like the blisters, individual models, characters, and things like that. And we're also, for once, actually going to start off with a non-Warhammer product. This is the one and only, or very few, non-Warhammer or Citadel models that I've bought. And they are a couple of different ones. It was actually in support of another YouTuber that does D&D content, Ginny D. She made some models based on her characters that she plays from D&D. And I just really like these. You don't often get female, nice looking models. I'm sorry to say that to certain sculptors, I guess. But these are really nice female inspired D&D characters. So these are a nice little collection of all female characters that we can use for D&D. I did get them because I was playing a D&D campaign where one of my friends was playing a character that one of these would have been suitable for. But that campaign wrapped up when they moved up north, and therefore the models never got painted for it. But I've still got them. They're really nice models, and one day I might paint them up on the channel and potentially get a D&D game in using them as well. So this nice little fun non-Citadel kit. I'm going for the little justification and explanation because you probably don't know what they are. But with that said, let's jump across to the next kit, and we're going to be moving into the Citadel world now. Next, we have some old Forge World kits. We've got the Vorax Battle Automata. I believe these are legends and have since been lost. I bought them many years ago at a Games Day. I think when it was still Games Day was when I bought them. They're a really cool AdMech style Imperial drone slash, basically imagine battle suits for AdMech. That's what they are. They're really cool. I haven't ever actually built them. They're these really cool bug-eyed Imperial armor units. And yeah, I'm sure I'll build them one day. They're really nice. Yeah. So, with that said, that is the Vorax class Battle Automata. Carrying on with some more Forge World stuff, we have a Navigator from Forge World. This is a model, again, I picked up a Games Day, I think it was. I've got one that I've actually painted, photo here, possibly. And this was a spare one that I picked up. I don't think you can buy these models anymore. And again, one that I'm sure I'll paint or fit into some sort of diorama at some point. But overall, really nice, simplistic Forge World model. Just an old man with a staff walking along, but obviously it's Forge World resin. Moving on, we are going to look at some slightly older bits. These are ones that I've had in my collection for a lot longer. I used to play Middle-earth strategy battle game. Nothing against it now. I would still play it if I had an army or people to play it with. And this is just some old blister packs from that. So we've got the good old Bilbo. Nice little metal Bilbo in the old original blister packs where they used to use letters to coincide with prices, and I have no idea what they were. I would be interested if I can find a reference of what an A was, and we'll try and find out what he cost originally. Obviously, the prices that we're going to be using for this is possibly going to be either list prices or eBay prices, depending on the model, depending if it's still available and things like that. So we've got a Bilbo from that set. From the same time, we've also got the Goblin King of Moria. Again, metal. It's a C-class model versus the Bilbo A model. There's a lot more metal in it, so it makes more sense. And then we've also got the old elf. Can't remember his name. Got the old elf blister pack that I think came in a magazine at one point and has just never been opened. So those are my old Lord of the Rings bits. We've also got a High Elf Commander. Half of this I painted up one that I was going to enter into Golden Demon. I think I did enter it into Golden Demon. And this was the leftover one from that blister pack. And yeah, this one's a relatively newer one, still in metal, unfortunately, but I, to be honest, would prefer it to be metal than fine cast. But it's still interesting that as of, I think, 2022, this was still being sold as a metal miniature at GW, even though they don't sell superglue anymore. And on their website, they say that you need superglue to assemble it and that you can buy it from their store that they don't sell. So anyway, regardless of GW's website store management, that's the small amount of blisters that we've got for Lord of the Rings. Let's move on to 40k. So 40k, we've got some Eldar pieces, we've got a Farseer as well as a Warlock. I had intended on doing a diorama with these guys, where I would have some Warlocks and a Farseer doing a really cool pose on a fight scene on some rocks. And then that was done by someone who can do it a lot better than me, and the project kind of got halted. I probably will do it one day, even though it's never going to do justice to this piece of work that I wouldn't be able to do. But equally, I think it's a really nice idea. Just because two people had a similar idea doesn't mean it can't be done again. I may just tweak it and twist it up a little bit so it doesn't just look a little bit like a copycat. But there we go, that's 3 Eldar models there. Next, we've got some Tau pieces. We have a Tau Piranha as well as a Broadside. For these guys, they do come with drones. I'm not going to be counting the drones as separate models. Unless I've got a drone squad, which I don't think I do. Otherwise, these are all going to be classed as just one kit. These are for a diorama I've got coming up. I'm hoping to do it on the channel. If you're interested in seeing dioramas and things like that, let me know. And if you've got an idea of essentially Tau battle schemes and things like that that we could use, let me know. But that is 2 Tau units, even though it's really amusing that they count the drones on this one, but they don't count the drones on this one. So slightly amusing. I don't know if the drones don't detach, but I'm pretty sure they do in the game. So interesting way that they're marketing this one. But overall, 2 Tau suits and we can move on. We have 3 of the Space Marine Hero sets. These are all different Space Marines. I've only got 3 of the set of 6. But overall, I was thinking of doing a diorama with these guys, but didn't manage to get all of the 6 before they stopped selling them, which is slightly disappointing. But is what it is. So overall, not too unhappy there. I've got some old school, out of production Space Marine models. So 3 more to add to the tally. These next ones are going to be counted as one model. It's actually 2 kits, but I've half spliced them out. These are for an army that I have as a project army called the Orks. And obviously, if you want to see things like that and my project there and updates on them, let me know down in the comments below. I might be able to do an army showcase. But essentially what I'm doing is taking the front half of one of the vehicles, the back half of the other vehicle, and then splicing them together, and then taking the remaining halves and splicing them together. One of those is already done and in the process of being painted, and the other is in these 2 boxes. So with that said, these are going to be one model for the Orks, even though it's actually 2 kits, but it's kind of half of a kit in each box. So, Orks sorted, 2 boxes, 1 model, not as bad as it seems. Let's move on. Next, we're moving back to Middle-earth, and this time with a box. We've got the Rohan Battle Host, comes with a bunch of horses and men. I have taken out all of the horses from this set, as well as, I think, Aemir, maybe? So we, in this box, only have left all of the foot soldiers, as well as the character. We've actually taken all of the horses from this kit, and I'm making up a diorama with the horses, which has left us with all of the men and currently the riders because they're not done yet. So with that said, I'm not going to count the riders in this, but I am going to count all of the men and the characters. So that is our Middle-earth stuff. I think exhausted. We may come across some more a little bit later. I think I've got another box of Lord of the Rings somewhere in a moment. So let's have a look. Moving that to the side. We do indeed. Yes, we have another Lord of the Rings kit. We've got the 3 hunters from Middle-earth. This is definitely a diorama, 100% going to be a diorama, and it's already planned out. And I'm hoping to have it done by the end of the year. This is something that isn't going to be put on the channel, so apologies about that. But yeah, we've got the 3 hunters. So 3 more characters added to our tally, and I'm actually really looking forward to this project. So once it's done in the new year, I will potentially show you what it is and do a kind of show off but this is a present for someone, so can't really show you ahead of time. Now we're moving on to the smaller kits and boxes for the Age of Sigmar / Old World / things like that. So with that said, let's jump on, and the first one we've got is just 4 Banshees, some nice Banshees from AOS. I have no idea how I got these, why I bought them. They apparently cost me a tenner, so there we go, that's easy for adding it to the value. But I've got these if, I guess, I ever need some ghosts. Moving on. Next, we've got the Collegiarch of Wizards. This is, I believe, a box of 4 wizards that you can make up for all of the various different Warhammer, Age of Sigmar / Old World Empire wizards. And essentially, I did all of this and bought all of these kits for just one part. I needed the torch head for one of the fire wizards. And yeah, so I could only get that from this kit. So I ended up buying the whole kit of wizards in order to just take hold of one single part from the kit, which is the part that was here. Obviously, I'm not going to just get rid of these. I will probably do something with wizards. I don't have an Empire army, and I don't currently play AOS or, I guess, Old World. But it's always nice to have wizards. Wizards are good. Always useful for diorama, that I always say is always around the corner. Then we've got some Savage Orks. These are some Bone Splitter Savage Orks, an old box. I've had some of these actually built. I got these from charity shop for relatively cheap, and essentially all I was actually looking for was some orcs for a D&D game that I needed to make at short notice. So there are some missing. I'll have to go through and count up how many of these are here. But overall, I think there was about 4 or 5 of these orcs missing, giving us a decent amount for a battle in a D&D game. So I'll tot up how many we've got, and we can go through and add that to the list. But we've got some old school Savage Orks, basically, in a box, ready to go. We have some non-GW stuff. We've got some Oathmark Light Elf Infantry. So these are very reminiscent of the old GW infantry. Obviously got these from a charity shop as well. And I don't think we've ever actually done anything with these guys. Nope, we've got a complete kit. Everything is in there, never been touched. So, yep. Again, these were kind of bought as a reserve when I was getting the orcs from the charity shop. And it just basically meant that we could make some light elf, high elf sort of security guards for D&D games and things like that. And yeah, it turns out they were never needed, but we've got them if we ever do need them. Right, I think that's all of the smaller kits sorted. So now we can move on to some of the bigger boxes. Some of these may only be a few models, but they're slightly bigger, more expensive kits in total. But let's jump in, and from this point, I think majority of them are going to be 40k, as you might expect based on my channel content. But we do have some other specialist games as well as AOS and things like that dotted in, and we'll just go over them as we get to them. I'm not going to be separating these out particularly. So let's jump into the first of the bigger boxes that we've got still to paint up. We're looking at the Imperial Agents Combat Patrol, a little bit of foreshadowing. I'm sure you can see what's going to be coming in the future for the channel. This is completely, fully not even opened, I don't think. Yep, not opened, ready to go. So we've got the 2 squads of our general 40k police, as well as our characters, all ready to go for a future video. So that's a nice quick 33 models added to the total. Next, we've got the Kill Team Octarius box, and this doesn't have all of the kill teams in it. This is essentially what I'm using as storage for what's left that isn't built from it, as well as the supplies for my Necrorc army. So we have got the Death Corp Krieg in here. All of those models are in here, but we've built a few of the orcs for various different projects and test builds and things like that. Inside this box, though, we have also got a few other things. We have got, on top of our various orcs that aren't built yet from the kit itself, we also have the old Christmas Goth Rocker model, which Games Workshop brought out for a Christmas celebration from their commemorative series. I'm thinking of trying to build a very mini diorama around this, a bit like most of my projects. We've also then got an army, so 22, 33, we've got 44 grots in total. Well, 40 grots and a bunch of rope herders as well. This is for the Necroc army, and to be honest, I just really like Gretchen models. Gretchen are just really cool models. I also really like the Ratlins, and there's new Ratlin models that look amazing, so I'm probably going to pick them up as well. There's just something about small, tiny models with big guns that I really like, and I've converted up a bunch of these already for my Necroc army, so these were left on the list to build up the rest of them. With that said, let's put them back in the box, add all of this to the total, and we'll move on. This next one is either going to be considered a very, very strong impulse buy or a good investment, and the reason for that is we bought one of the Christmas box sets that was for the Adeptus Custodes from a few years ago. In regards to the amount of models that you get for Custodes, this was essentially an army in a box. This plus potentially a combat patrol, and I've got a very, very large Adeptus Custodes army. At the moment, however, I haven't built or painted any of these models, I don't think, and therefore... Oh, no, I did. I have painted Trajan Valoris, and I've painted him on the channel. So if you want to check that out, potentially, if I remember, there's a card up here. But beyond Trajan Valoris, we've not painted any of these models as of yet. And I didn't mind painting him because he's more of a named character, and I don't really like using named characters or named character models in my army if I can avoid it. So I'd rather just kit bash up a special character. With that said, we do still need to add a total of 21 miniatures to the list. And I've got a very nice Custodes army if I ever need to play Custodes, or for some reason I run into Henry Cavill and need to give him a gift. I guess I'm sorted. So with that said, jumping across to some of the other Christmas kits that I may have bought. Well, not may have bought, I definitely bought. And they are all the 40k ones as well. The first one being the Necrons, not the Necrons, the Orks. And the reason I said Necrons and not Orks is because this kit has actually been mostly used. And we're building out our Necroc army that I've mentioned earlier. And here we've got a few things left in here. Mainly we've got the Deathkiller Warbike, the Big Mech, and a few of the Orks remaining. Not even that, we've got... Oh, more grots. More grots. We've got 44 grots, 44. So more grots. A Deathkiller War Trike and a Big Mech, so we can add some more models to that. Next is a box that I was really quite impressed I managed to get. This was another one of those Christmas boxes that tended to sell out quite quickly. This one was the Chainbreaker Lance, and this came with 2 armigers for each class. And you may sit there, and I've seen some people say that you could just make 4 of the ones with swords instead of the guns. That's actually not possible in this kit, or at least in the ones that I seem to have got. You can only make what is on the box. So 1 knight of any variation, as well as 2 gun boys and 2 sword boys. You can't just make 4 sword boys from 1 kit. I found that out when I built the other one of this, because this is actually box 2, and I've built the 4 armigers from the other box, and I've got the knight somewhere, so we'll add that to the list when we get to it. But for now, this is a full box of knights, and we've got a total of 6 miniatures if you count your little boy as well. So with that said, 6 miniatures, and these ones are quite big if you don't count the little boy. So 5 big miniatures and 1 little miniature added to our list. And if I magnetize them, technically you could make many miniatures if I magnetized it, which I probably won't. But if I did, I could count this as many. These next ones we're going to run off all in one go in quick succession, and that's because they're all specialist games and things like that. A lot of them aren't actually built or painted, so we've got our Blood Bowl set. Oh, that's heavy. We've got our second season of Blood Bowl. This has got all of the stuff that Blood Bowl has in it, including the rulebook and all of the models completely unbuilt. The plan was to play Blood Bowl, but the person I was going to play it with decided to flee my area, and therefore I have a game of Blood Bowl that is not built. I do actually know how to play Blood Bowl. I do enjoy Blood Bowl, and I've played it, the computer game, as well as the older version when I was younger. I just have not got any interest in painting up 2 teams for a game that I currently can't play. And this next one's a little bit older and a little bit rarer, I think, and that's the old Dreadfleet game. And this is one of those spin-off games that Games Workshop did, similar to Space Hulk. Not a hint what I'm going to be looking at later. But similar to Space Hulk, this was one of those spin-off games that was independently playable. And my local store was doing a Warhammer at Sea event when this kind of came out, potentially planned. I was too young to notice if it was at the time. But when this came out, essentially, I was playing Warhammer at Sea. I thought this would be a great way to do that. Turns out the game is completely different. As soon as it sold out at my local store, the local store decided that playing it in store was a bit pointless, and therefore no one ever played it. So I built a couple of ships from this, and one of which I distinctly remember I built incorrectly, and then no one ever played it. So it's here in case I ever do need to play Warhammer at Sea. Overall, they're actually quite nice models. I do like the ships and things like that. So as a project, I may come back to them for future things like that. Because look, who doesn't like tiny little boats? Everyone likes tiny boats. And I just don't have anyone to play the game with. I've got all the rules. I've got all of the models. I've got some of the ships are built, even though this is the one that's built incorrectly, because my fire and wind are the wrong way round. But overall, they're nice kits. Just no reason to build or paint them. If you have any interest in Dreadfleet and would like to see us paint up some of these smaller ships, let us know down in the comments below. But for now, they will be staying in the pile of potential play in future. And that then brings us on to our foreshadowed Space Hulk. This is the old school 2008 3rd edition Space Hulk, I think it is. Overall, really nice kit. I've got everything here. Most of this is actually painted. I really enjoy Space Hulk, so I have painted up most of this. We've got mainly a few of the Space Marines still to paint up. They're in their ready to prime, ready to paint prime state. They're just in a nice zenithal. But majority of the models are painted. So we've got a few of the Terminators are painted up in a natural Blood Angel scheme, as well as painting up all of the Tyranids. We've gone for this sort of desaturated green bone-like scheme on the Tyranids. So all of these are in place. I've got this nice cut-out foam case that you can buy as an additional thing for it. And it's a really nice outcome overall. I've just got a couple of things to finish off. And then we've got a full set of painted Space Hulk. So overall, I think there's about 6 or 7 models in there that aren't painted. So I'll add them to the tally. But really do like the game, really do like the models, and I'm glad that I managed to get a box a few years ago. Then we've got the smaller box, which is a Genestealer Cults box. This is one that we've bought for the channel. This is bought recently, but is currently unbuilt and unpainted. We've actually built the bikers for a video coming up, as well as the alphas, but they're not painted yet. So I'm technically counting them because at the point of filming this video, they're not done, even though they will be done shortly. So that is another total of 17 models added to the count. I don't know what the count is at the moment, so we're all going to find out at the end. But with the smaller Combat Patrol box done, we can move across to a slightly bigger box with a more impressive number count of models. And that's going to be starting off with Dominion, which was the launch box for AOS a few years ago. And this is a box with a lot of models in it. We've got 2 whole armies in this box. I don't know how many of these models are still usable, but they are in the box. I haven't built anything in this apart from one model, which was used to enter into a Golden Demon, and that is going to be taken away from this count. That was one of the good guys from the kits that we ended up doing. So with that said, we've got basically an entire kit of Dominion to add to the list. And if I ever need to get into AOS, I've got at least an Ork army and possibly some models for our big golden boys. And in a similar vein to Dominion, we've also got a very similar box, but this time for 40k, we've got the Leviathan box set. In fact, we've not actually got one Leviathan box set. We've actually got 2 Leviathan box sets. So overall, we've got 2 box sets, and the only thing taken out of these is actually 1 librarian, which was the librarian we used for our converted librarian for finishing off our Combat Patrol. Otherwise, we've still got all of the models in here. There's a fair amount. We've got a nice Tyranid army and a Space Marine army spread across all of these boxes, and we can dig these out and paint these at any point. I'm tempted to do a sort of army in a night style video at some point, but let's see how it goes. I'm not sure what faction or anything we're going to paint these in, but I have a nice chunky box of Nids and Space Marines if I need them. With that said, that is the bulk of the bigger unboxed kits. So these are essentially kits that I've just bought from Games Workshop, possibly built 1 or 2 models from, and then stuck into my chest. Next, we have a sprue box. This is the other knight that came from that kit that I mentioned earlier. So, some tail bits, and as well as the Grey Knight mech suit that you get from the Grey Knight kit where we didn't build up the mech suit, as well as a couple of admech pieces because I needed 2 wheels for a diorama, and therefore ended up with a bunch of servitors for admech. I've got 2 that are completely buildable, and then 1 that's missing a chassis. And then the rest of this is just our 40k knight, which is obviously, if you count in the box that we've already looked at, a total of 2 big knights, and then we've got 4 little knights as well, able to be built, painted, and everything like that. And I've obviously got 4 that I've previously done in the past. We've actually got a large chunk still to come, and it's one of the areas that I quite like, and I'm happy that I've still got it in the form that it is. So let me just quickly grab a box. Well, this isn't going to work. Hey guys, welcome back. This is a very big box, and this box is all of the magazines and releases that came in the Imperium magazine. So let's get this open. Now you might be able to see I've had to move the box down here. Having the box on the table, stupid idea. Don't do it. There's not enough room on the table. But yes, in this box we have all of the Imperium magazines. They're not all packaged like this. These are spare ones that I picked up over the course of time. Apologies about the rustling noise. As well as ones like this for the Mortal Realms. These are just spare ones that I just want to keep together. We have every sprue that came in the Imperium set all labelled out. So for example, this kit came in Imperium magazine issue 75. We've got the issue all together as well as the kit that's with it. Same here, this slightly battered one is issue 22 and consists of some admech. Yep, admech. So all of these elements in theory are hopefully labelled in some way or another. Issue 52, issue 25. So I'm not going to go through all of these. Obviously, I'm sure by now you know what the Imperium magazine had in it. This is last year's 40k Hatchet Partworks magazine, and I think they're now running a new one that comes with a bunch of combat patrols. So probably we'll end up buying that as well. But this is all of the old edition version than everything that we've got. I'm going to put on screen now basically the total running lot of what comes with all of the Imperium magazines. This also includes all the premium kits, so I will be adding them into the total. But there are a fair amount. We've got Necrons with Doomstalkers, we've got Terrain, we have a large amount. I will be adding the terrain and everything like that into the value elements of these if I can find them, but I won't be adding them into the model count because I don't really class them as a model per se. So you will see a slight discrepancy there. But overall, we have an entire box of all of the contents of Imperium with all of the premium magazines in this particular box, which does give us the option at some point in the future to potentially do one of the largest army projects I've ever done over a short period of time. I'm not committing to that because it would take a long time and I'd need a lot of time, resource, and everything like that to do it. But equally, we've got the option if we wanted to. With that said, there is one more box that I need to get out, and this one's a little bit bigger. I did it again. So this box is similar to the last one, except rather than having the entire contents of the Imperium magazine, which is the 40k monthly magazine that you can get, or weekly, but they send it to you monthly if you're ordering it from them direct. This is the same thing, but for the very old AOS version of it. They're currently doing one, I think, called Stormbringer. I've got some of the Stormbringer editions in here, but I've actually stopped that subscription now. But I do have the entirety of the original edition that I started, which is Mortal Realms. So let's jump into the box. And we've naturally got all of the various magazines, but we've also got, as I said, some of the Stormbringers, which we actually stopped collecting halfway through, but we've got some of those, so I'll have to count them up individually. And then in this box, we've actually got all of the sprues for those, for Mortal Realms, which amasses to another large various amounts of armies. So overall, we've got a vast amount of AOS stuff, and unfortunately, as far as I'm aware, a lot of the AOS models in this box set are actually now out of circulation. But either way, I've got a large selection of now potentially out of range models, which means that I can do some retro hammer models in the future. And with all of the complete set of Mortal Realms in the box and sorted away, we can move on to our final hurdle, and that is the various single sprue boxes. And this is our 40k box. Essentially, these are all just random ones that I've picked up over time, and I've got most of the pieces for. Mainly things like spare Imperium magazines. So the first one's always around £2, and you get 1 or 2 characters. So I've picked up a few of those so that they're useful for kit bashing and things like that. We've also got some various Astra Militarum style kits, few Necrons. It's just a bunch of miscellaneous models. So I'll tot all of these up and add these to the total at the end. And then we've got essentially the same thing for AOS and scenery. Our scenery box is just various different kits. We've got some ruins, we've got the various tankers and boxes and things like that. So there's a fair few different types of kits there, all of which I will just tot up. But as I said, I'm not really counting these as models because they're terrain. They're not individual models, the same as I would normally count models. And then we've got the larger box of AOS stuff, and this is including things like dryads and also some slightly bigger kits that I've got from start collecting boxes in the past. So for example, here we've got the dwarf on Big Dwarf Beast. I have no idea. It's the lava beast that you get in the start collecting box. So we've got one of those left over from when we built out some dwarves in the past, as well as a similar one for the Night Haunt, I believe it is. We've got Archon the Black, I believe the model is, the nice ghost horse boy for the undead. Beyond that, we've got a couple of things like goblins, which again came from places like the Stormbringer magazine or the Mortal Realms magazine when they were out. And we were able to pick up some cheap versions of nice models. That's all our generic sprues, but I'm not just going to end it there for you. I have got a small box, which is just our metal models that we've pulled out of various areas. We have got some more probably dotted around, but this is just a small collection of the ones that we found. A few little gems in here that I quite like, and we could potentially use some projects. Some of which are from my old Tomb King's army, as well as back in the older times when I used to play, and they were more common to be metal models. So we've got a couple of tank busters. We should have the full pieces here for these fair few metal models of tank busters. Along with that, we've also got some miscellaneous things. So this is a dark elf sorceress from original Warhammer Fantasy Battles, which is now Age of Sigmar or Old World. A few Lord of the Rings models. Tomb Scarab Scorpions for the Tomb Kings, and I believe there's also an Ushapti in here as well. So a couple of the metal models left over from my old Tomb King army. Beyond that, we've got a little bit of a very old Terminator. I had a fair few of these at one point, and there's not many of them knocking around in my boxes for some reason, so I've managed to dig this one out in the old Blood Angel scheme that I used to play when I was younger. But overall, it might be fun to give this guy a little bit of a stripping and paint him up in a newer technique, but potentially in more of a retro style. And then, talking about retro, we've also got a very old Necron, as well as a very old Ork from old editions of Warhammer. And overall, these again, I might add to my Terminator, and we can do some sort of retro style video in the future. But that essentially brings us to the final collection. So what we're going to do now is bring up on screen what our final total is for all of the models and everything we've just looked through. Hopefully I've caught all of the models that we've gone through today. And that brings us to a total model count of 959 models across the entire unpainted collection. With that said, there is naturally a semi-financial cost attributed to all of these models. I think it is interesting to kind of calculate what the value is that we've got sat around me right now. But in total, we have got a final value of around £2,400 to £2,500. So with that all said, what do you think? How is this compared to your collection of your grey pension at home? So if you want to check out more stuff from me, I don't really have another video like this, but you might want to see how I get through these models quite quickly. And there's an Eldar video where we painted up a combat patrol in a very short period of time. So why not check that out here? Otherwise, do remember to subscribe so that we can see you next time.